Welcome to AI for Leaders podcast, where we explore how artificial intelligence and cloud technologies are transforming leadership and business strategy. I'm your host, Adriana, and today we're diving into one of the most critical and complex intersections in technology: healthcare, cloud computing, and regulatory compliance. Our special guest today is Cosmin Drimba, CEO of safeINIT, an AWS expert partner that specializes in getting healthcare cloud implementations done right. With healthcare organizations globally facing increasing pressure to modernize their infrastructure while maintaining strict compliance standards, Cosmin expertise in navigating HIPAA requirements, global expansion challenges, and AWS best practices offers invaluable insights for leaders in this space. Cosmin, welcome to the show.
Adriana, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to dive deep into this. I think there's a lot of confusion out there about healthcare and the cloud. Some companies are making really expensive mistakes, and I think they could be avoided with the right approach from the start.
Excellent. A pleasure to have you here today. Before we explore safeINIT's approach to healthcare cloud solutions, I'd love to understand your background a bit. What drew you to focus specifically on healthcare technology, and how did you recognize the unique challenges that healthcare organizations faced when moving to the cloud?
This is a good one. One of my favorite stories, actually. So it started with what I felt was like a test, actually, which I almost failed, right? In the beginning, we got approached by a HIPAA consultant who needed AWS expertise to build compliant environments for one of his healthcare clients. So during our discovery call, he suddenly switched gears and he said, you know what? Let's say that I'm the CEO of this healthcare company and I'm asking you, the person who built our infrastructure, what's the most secure way for me to access patient data? How would you handle that request? So something felt off about his question. Something felt off because, most consultants would go directly to talking about encryption or talking about, private access or other types of access controls. But instead, I went with my gut feeling and I asked him point blank, you know what? Let's just stop here for now. You're the CEO, fine. I just need to understand why you actually need to access patient data itself. What's the business requirement behind that? So then the call went silent for a few seconds. And then he came back to me and said, yeah, I think we can stop here. Let's just stop the project. I think that's fine. So it turns out that that was exactly what he was looking for, right? Questioning whether there is a business requirement behind accessing patient data, private patient data. So we dove deeper into the project and I realized that HIPAA compliance isn't this mystical framework, right? It's mostly common sense security practices we were already doing in other, let's say, non-healthcare projects, right? It's about having proper access controls. It's about encryption. It's about audit logging, right? The difference in healthcare is that these practices tend to be mandatory instead of optional. So that's when we decided to focus on healthcare. Most AWS partners see HIPAA as this scary compliance hurdle. We see it as codified best practices.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing the story about how this started. So healthcare has traditionally been one of the most conservative, I would say, industries when it comes to technology adoption. What's driving the current wave of cloud transformation in healthcare, and how has safeINIT positioned itself with its impressive 57 certifications to address these changing needs?
I love that number. Actually, in the meantime, it's gone to 59, but who's counting?
Okay, 59. Congratulations.
Thank you. There we go. So to answer your question, I think there are three major things that are forcing, let's say, healthcare's hand right now. First of all, whether we like to admit it or not, we are still in the pandemic aftermath. The pandemic showed everyone which organization could adapt fast and which ones couldn't. The healthcare companies that already had modern cloud infrastructure could pivot to telehealth, for example, in just a few weeks. The ones who were still running legacy systems took months, and unfortunately, some never fully caught up. Second, as we all know, AI is becoming unavoidable. And it's actually becoming unavoidable in healthcare as well. Whether we're talking about diagnostic imaging, drug discovery, or just automating administrative tasks, you can't really run AI workloads efficiently on traditional on-premise infrastructure. You need something for scale and flexibility, and that is the cloud. And third, of course, this is a big one, costs. Costs are completely unsustainable. And when we're looking at healthcare organizations who are adopting the cloud, we see costs dropping by at least 40 to 50% when, of course, the architecture is properly implemented. So that's not optional anymore. Now about this magical number of certification, right? This is, although it might not seem like it, this is not just us collecting badges for fun. Any person of my team that has taken a certification, I don't think they will use the word fun in that sentence. So each certification represents like deep expertise in services that healthcare actually needs. When a client wants to implement, for example, AI for clinical decision support while maintaining HIPAA compliance, our certified experts have expertise in both AWS Bedrock, for example, and the healthcare security frameworks. Some, if not most, AWS partners have to learn this stuff on the client's dime. We already know it, right? And then the advanced partner status gives us direct access to AWS engineers and early access to new healthcare services. So when AWS comes out with something like, I don't know, let's say Health Lake, for example, or updates their HIPAA eligible services, we're testing it before it goes public. So that translates directly into faster, better implementations for our clients.
Excellent. HIPAA compliance is often cited as the biggest barrier to cloud adoption in healthcare. Can you break down for our listeners what HIPAA actually requires in the context of cloud infrastructure, and how do you help organizations navigate these requirements without sacrificing innovation?
Well, actually, this is where most people get it completely wrong. HIPAA doesn't ban specific technologies or say you can't innovate. It's actually pretty simple. It has a set of safeguards for protecting health information: administrative, physical, and technical. That's it. The real requirements, boil down to common sense things: encrypt data everywhere, control who can access what, keep detailed logs of everything, and make sure you can account for all patient data. AWS provides the tools to do this, right? You have KMS for encryption. You have IAM for access control. You have CloudTrail for auditing logs. Most healthcare organizations think HIPAA compliance mean they need to build everything custom or avoid modern services. We had a client actually a few years back who was told by another consultant that they couldn't use machine learning for analyzing medical images because of HIPAA. Complete nonsense, right? What we do and how we help our clients, we provide pre-built compliant architectures using AWS services. So instead of having your developers figuring out compliance from scratch as they build their application, they build on a foundation that's already secure and compliant. So this actually accelerates innovation because you're not reinventing security, and we are not actually reinventing anything. We're not reinventing the wheel in any sort of way. You're just building healthcare solutions on top of our secure foundation.
Excellent. And also safeINIT, it's fully AWS. I think that's one of the things that really impressed me. Also, I've seen you guys have impressive results already in the healthcare industry. I've seen your case studies on your website showing 50% cost savings and 4 times deployment speed improvements. That's really impressive. How do you balance serving different types of clients while maintaining your healthcare expertise? Like, what type of organizations see most value from your services?
Well, that's an excellent question. First of all, those numbers are real, right? However, they come from being selective about who we actually work with. We're not trying to serve everyone. we focus on actually two types of clients where our expertise really matters. So the first one is growth stage health tech companies. That's typically in the 50 to 500 employees range who are already generating revenue but are scaling fast. So these companies are quite impatient, and they should be, because they need to move quickly, but they also can't afford to get compliance wrong. A HIPAA violation for these companies means, end of business, basically. So for them, our pre-built templates and methodologies mean they can go from zero to production in 3 to 5 weeks instead of 6 months, basically. Right. And our second type of companies that we engage are, of course, the AI for the enterprises, right? They are implementing machine learning or Gen AI solutions. So these tend usually to be larger companies, but they need expert guidance on the latest AWS AI services or whatever AI offerings AWS has to offer. They have complex requirements. They have significant AWS spend. So our status as an advanced partner and direct AWS relationship really pays off. So you mentioned the 4x deployment speed, right? That comes from not having to figure out compliance and architecture patterns from scratch every time. We've done this enough times that we know what works. And then the 50% cost savings, of course, come from right-sizing infrastructure from day one, right? Instead of what we've seen many, many times, which we like to call over-provisioning out of fear, right? You also ask how we, tend to serve different customer while maintaining our expertise. I'll say it again. We turn down projects that don't fit the profiles I've mentioned. Trying to be everything to everyone just, dilutes your expertise. So we like to be the absolute best choice for specific types of clients than mediocre for everyone.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying all of those aspects. Which health tech companies approach you with compliance concern? Like, what are the most common misconceptions they have about HIPAA requirements in the cloud, and how do you leverage your impressive team's expertise to address those concerns?
Well, I think the biggest misconception that we usually hear is that HIPAA means that you cannot use modern cloud services. We hear stuff like our lawyer says we cannot put patient data in the cloud, or we have been told we cannot use AI services because of HIPAA, which both are completely wrong, as we've discussed. And another big one is companies thinking that, compliance is all or nothing. Either you're compliant or you're not. HIPAA actually is, again, common sense, and they state this into their language. You actually require reasonable and appropriate safeguards based on your organization's size and capabilities. So a 10-person startup doesn't need the same security infrastructure as a hospital system. So they are quite flexible in that. And the third misconception is that compliance is just about technology. So HIPAA is more about policies, training, processes, rather than, specific technical controls. You can have the most secure AWS setup in the world, but if your employees are sharing passwords or accessing patient data that they don't need, you're not compliant. How do we handle this? Pretty straightforward. We show them working examples, right? We can demo HIPAA compliant environments. So when our clients see that this is actually working in production, the fear disappears, basically. Another thing that we do is that we separate the technical implementation from the legal interpretation. We handle the AWS architecture and security controls. For policy development, legal compliance question, we connect them with, our network of HIPAA specialists that can handle, let's say, the administrative tasks. We like to say, stay in your lane, but of course, make sure that all the lanes are covered.
With safeINIT's advanced partner status and your team's now 59 certifications across multiple competencies, including DevOps, resilience, how do you translate this technical depth into business value for your healthcare clients?
Well, again, about the certification, about the competencies, about everything, right? Technical expertise is actually worthless if it doesn't deliver business outcomes, measurable business outcomes. Our certifications translate into three things: speed, reliability, and cost. So for speed, again, we deploy a healthcare solution faster because we're not learning as we go on, right? We know which AWS services work well. We know all of this because we've made all the mistakes already. Telehealth platform that might take a generalist AWS partner or specialist 6 months to deploy, we can deliver in 3 to 5 weeks. The next thing about reliability, right? We mentioned our DevOps and resiliency competencies. By going through that process, we are actually now forced to architect for 99.9% uptime from day one. In healthcare, time can impact patient care. So that's, a non-negotiable, basically. And then cost. We typically reduce infrastructure costs by 40, 50% while improving performance. Right sizing, spot workloads, serverless, savings plans, all major contributors to cost saving, all not impacting the HIPAA status of an environment, right? But I think the real value is that we challenge assumptions, right? I started with a story. So clients come to us asking for specific solutions, but we recommend better approaches based on what we've seen working across similar healthcare organizations.
safeINIT has achieved, as we were saying, has achieved the advanced tier AWS partner status with 59 certifications across your team. Can you walk our listeners through what is this level of partnership? What does it mean? How you've built such deep technical expertise, particularly in healthcare specific AWS implementations?
Well, the advanced partner status isn't something that you can buy. You have to earn it. So AWS requires you as a partner to demonstrate the technical competencies, prove customer success stories, and significant AWS consumption across your client base. For us, it started with a decision back in 2022 to go deep instead of broad, right? While other partners were trying to serve everyone, we made a bet to focus obsessively basically on healthcare and modern workloads. As you said, right, we invested heavily in certifications, not just the basic ones that everyone gets, like the associate ones, but specialist certifications, right, in security, DevOps, and actually the new GenAI competency, which we hope to achieve quite soon. So the healthcare focus required us to go way beyond the standard AWS knowledge. We spent thousands of hours building healthcare specific templates, testing compliance configurations, developing repeatable methodologies. So what this means practically is that when we walk into a healthcare company, we already speak their language, both technical and regulatory. We understand their typical architecture patterns, their scaling challenges, their compliance requirements, and we are ready from day one to start serving their needs.
With so many AWS partners in the market, I know there are more than 150,000 partners right now globally. What specifically differentiates safeINIT's approach, particularly when working with healthcare organizations? How do you demonstrate the value beyond just the technical implementation?
So again, most AWS partners are generalists, right? They're trying to be everything to everyone. We made the opposite choice. We're specialists who decided to be the absolute best at serving healthcare and AI for the companies. Period. The difference shows up immediately, right? When we have like a digital health startup that's interacting with us, we already understand the requirements, their challenges, their integration needs. We don't need to spend weeks learning their business. We can jump straight into solving their problems, right? So agility is definitely one of our main selling points for healthcare. But then, beyond technical expertise, we provide strategic guidance, right? We don't just implement what client asks us for. We challenge assumptions. And for example, we had a recent client who wanted to build their own patient data lake from scratch, right? Because of this, let's say, lack of knowledge or of expertise with AWS services. So instead of just saying, yeah, okay, let's just do that, spend months building your own patient data lake, let's just implement the AWS Health Lake, which is a valid solution. And we are seeing decreases in costs, both in implementation and in usage, right? And then, the proof is there in the results. We have tremendous compliance success rates, we have faster deployments, and we have, measurable cost reductions. So their business outcomes, this really has an impact on our client success.
Thank you, Cosmin. I'd love to hear about your diverse client base. How do you adapt your AWS approach for different types of healthcare organizations, whether that's a fast-growing health tech startup or more an established enterprise looking for AI implementation solutions?
Well, I think it's really about understanding different risk profiles and time horizons. Healthcare startups, well, they need to move fast, prove that the product fits the market, right? But they also can't afford to get compliance wrong. Again, HIPAA violations means end of the line, right? For startups, we use our pre-built compliant templates, rapid deployment approach, right? I've already mentioned, let's say 3 to 5 weeks timeline where we can stand something up that's fully compliant. Enterprise AI implementations, however, are completely different. These companies have existing systems. They have complex integration requirements. They have multiple stakeholders with different priorities. Here we take a more consultative approach. Let's do an architecture review. Let's identify the integration points. Let's create these phased implementation plans that don't disrupt their current operation. Right? I think the key difference is how much can you tolerate technical debt, right? Startups can accept some technical debt and speed because they need to get to market fast. Enterprises need a long-term scalability. They can invest more upfront for better architecture. I think in both cases, compliance or security are non-negotiable from day one. That's where our specialization really pays off. Whether you're a 10 people startup or a 500 people enterprise, the HIPAA requirements in terms of security are basically the same.
Can you please share a specific example of how safeINIT helped a healthcare organization overcome a complex HIPAA compliance challenge through AWS implementation? I'm particularly interested in the before and after picture and how you measured success.
Wow. Excellent. So for that, I would like actually to share the I2I Connect story. That's a teletherapy platform. So basically providing mental health services online. They came to us because their infrastructure wasn't meeting HIPAA requirements. Their business associates were getting nervous about, various security gaps. The real problem wasn't just compliance. The platform has some reliability issues. And when you're dealing with therapy sessions, downtime isn't just inconvenient. You're talking about people who've already made, let's say, a decision to have a therapy session with somebody, and that's going on online on a remote system. So if the platform goes down during a session, that's kind of sensible for the patient because that patient might decide that they don't want to come back. So that's a missed opportunity for treatment. So it's really, really sensitive, and it's really, really important that the platform is as reliable as possible, right? So we rebuilt their entire AWS infrastructure using our framework. And the key was doing it without disrupting their ongoing operations, right? We implemented proper failover, got the compliance sorted out, and built the redundancy they needed for this type of application. The result was that they could focus on providing therapy instead of worrying about these various infrastructure problems. Their platform became more reliable and their compliance concerns were resolved. They had a foundation to scale as their patient base grew. What I like about this project, it shows how infrastructure directly impacts patient care. Better technology infrastructure means better healthcare delivery. And I'd like to think that's the kind of work that actually matters.
Was it like an app? Was it a web platform?
It's a web.
The pandemic accelerated digital health adoption, I think, worldwide. How has this shift impacted your business and what opportunities do you see emerging in the post-pandemic healthcare technology landscape?
Indeed, the pandemic was a massive accelerator for us. Organizations that had to transform their approach have been talking about this kind of digital transformations for years, and suddenly they had to do it in weeks. Telehealth went from that would be nice to have into an absolutely essential thing overnight. We saw healthcare companies that have modern cloud infrastructure pivot to remote care in days. Organizations which were stuck on legacy systems took months to adapt. So I think this created a pretty clear dividing line in the whole market. Post-pandemic, we're seeing three big opportunities. So first, we have hybrid care models, which are here to stay. Organizations need infrastructure that can handle both in-person and remote care, seamlessly. Second, there's the huge demand for AI-powered clinical decision support, right? And diagnostic tools. And third, we're hearing more and more talks about interoperability. It's becoming a priority because the pandemic showed that critical data sharing is, paramount during a health crisis. The organization that invested in modern infrastructure during the pandemic now have this significant competitive advantage, right? They can implement new technologies faster. They can scale more efficiently. They can adapt to changing regulations more easily.
For healthcare organizations looking to expand internationally, what are the key considerations they should keep in mind regarding cloud infrastructure and compliance, and how do you help them navigate these complexities?
Well, the first thing we hear and the first consideration is where the data resides, right? Many countries require healthcare data to stay within their specific geographic boundary. AWS regions, of course, they help, but you need to architect for data locality from the very beginning. Second, understand that compliance is just the baseline, right? You need to consider local healthcare workflows, the integration standards and cultural expectations, right, about data privacy. What works in a US hospital might not work in a European clinic, right? And third, I think you need to also plan for regulatory changes. Healthcare regulations evolve constantly, especially around AI and data sharing. Your architecture needs to be flexible enough to adapt to the new requirements without complete rebuilds. How we help is we provide this technical foundation that works across multiple regulatory frameworks. But we always recommend partnering with local experts for regulatory interpretation and market entry strategy, right? There is no one size fits all, especially not when dealing with healthcare regulatory compliance. We handle the AWS implementation. There is another set of individuals who handle the local compliance nuances, right? And I think that division of labor works well because both sides of the aisle can focus on what they do best.
Looking ahead, what emerging technologies do you see having the biggest impact on healthcare cloud infrastructure, and how is safeINIT preparing for these changes?
Well, GenAI, right, is the obvious answer, of course. I think the real transformation, however, will come from real-time data processing at scale. We're moving toward the world where AI can analyze patient data streams in real time and provide clinical decision support at the point of care, which is incredible. That's huge. That's a huge leap forward. Then edge computing integrated with cloud will also be quite significant. I think processing sensitive health data closer to patients while maintaining cloud connectivity for AI model updates and population health insights. Think about remote patient monitoring devices that can detect anomalies locally, but still feed into broader healthcare analytics. AWS is investing heavily in healthcare-specific AI services like, Health Lake, which I've mentioned, and Bedrock for healthcare applications. We're already working on the GenAI competency, right? We're testing these services with select clients to answer the question, how we are staying prepared and possibly ahead of the curve, right? I think the other big shift is that healthcare infrastructure is becoming more like financial services, right? Real time, always on, zero tolerance for downtime. And I do believe that traditional IT approaches don't work when you're dealing with life critical systems. When new healthcare AI tools become available, we want to be ready to implement them securely and compliantly from day one. I think that's the advantage of specialization. We can invest deeply in the technologies that matter most to our clients.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about what's possible with AI in healthcare. So talking about that, AI and machine learning are becoming increasingly important in healthcare, everything from research, development, and day-to-day activities. How do you help organizations, healthcare organizations, implement AI capabilities while maintaining the HIPAA compliance and data security in the same time? Because compliance is super important.
Yeah. I think the key here is to understand that HIPAA doesn't prohibit AI. It just requires you to implement it correctly. Most healthcare organizations think they can't use AI services because of compliance concerns, right? As you said, which is completely wrong. Provides HIPAA eligible AI services like Bedrock, SageMaker, Comprehend Medical that can process protected health information when configured properly, of course. The challenge is knowing how to architect these solutions with the right encryption, with the right access controls, and with the right types of audit logging. We approach this by building the AI capabilities on the HIPAA compliant foundation. So instead of healthcare organizations having to figure out both AI implementation and compliance simultaneously, they can focus on the clinical use cases while we handle the infrastructure, right? For example, we're working with clients on AI-powered diagnostic imaging, where the AI models process medical images, but never store patient data long-term. Everything is encrypted in transit and at rest. Access is strictly controlled through IAM. And of course, every interaction is logged for audit purposes.
Yeah, that's absolutely impressive. I'm just visualizing how the information goes from the patient and everything. Yeah, interoperability remains a significant challenge in healthcare. How do you see cloud technologies helping to solve interoperability issues, and what role does AWS play in enabling better data sharing and collaboration as well?
Well, this is finally getting solved, right? I keep hearing more and more clients talk about it, and it's happening through APIs and standardized data models rather than trying to force legacy systems to talk to each other. Of course, the big one is FHIR, FHIR, which is the fast healthcare interoperability resources. And it's becoming the common language of healthcare data. And AWS are making it much easier to implement. They have FHIR compliant APIs that can actually share data between different systems. We have another one, which is Health Lake. This is a game changer. It can ingest healthcare data in multiple formats and automatically convert it to the FHIR standard. This is a game changer for a lot of clients, right? It's a big hurdle that they can finally get over, right? So instead of spending months building custom integrations between different EMR systems, now you can have different healthcare organizations sharing data through this standardized API, right? And the cloud also enables the part which I like to call data federation, right? healthcare organization can collaborate on analytics and research without actually sharing raw patient data, which is huge. You can run machine learning models across multiple data sets, right, while keeping the actual data in separate compliant environments. The real breakthrough,
Well,
however,
one second, I have a question here. So does it mean that you can analyze the patient data and do like sort of research and analysis without effectively seeing the patient personal data?
exactly,
Did
exactly.
I hear this correctly? Wow, that's huge.
Exactly. Like these systems have gotten to a stage where, they're just there. You just have to use them, basically. Right. So to be able to run analytics, to be able to run aggregation on data, to run data anonymization, tokenizations with these kind of features built in, right? It's huge.
Really impressive. And there, you just need to get connected with partners like safeINIT, right? To get access to the knowledge on how to do that. So if you work in research, even if if you're doing research in the academics arena, I have a close friend who's doing her PhD on, she's a data scientist. She's doing her PhD on a couple of healthcare topics. And I introduced her to AWS a couple of years ago. Now, finally, they run teams on AWS, but I feel like they are still kind of, scratching the surface. I don't think them as data scientists have the know-how, the knowledge on how you do things, everything, all the learnings and everything you've been improving throughout the years. So that's truly impressive.
I don't have expectations from, let's say, anyone to know the ins and outs of AWS, specifically of ins and outs of AWS healthcare services, right? It's a beast. We have, let's say, expertise that we've acquired through the years, through multiple deployments, through our mistakes, and we're still learning stuff week by week, right? There's every week that AWS comes out with a new feature, a new service, a new GenAI model, or something that basically affects in some shape of way or form what we've done so far. Again, to have expectations from somebody who's not doing this for a living, to know what they're done, the fact that they are even capable of scratching the surface, as you said, is impressive.
Yeah, I think I need to connect you guys to have a chat about this. So the healthcare industry is facing increasing cybersecurity threats for various reasons. What are the biggest security challenges you've been seeing, and how do you help healthcare organizations build that sort of resilient, secure cloud infrastructure?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I think that healthcare organizations are incredibly attractive targets because health data is worth a lot more than financial data on dark markets. The challenge is that many healthcare organizations still think about security like traditional businesses instead of recognizing their high value targets. And the biggest threats we see are ransomware attacks targeting patient systems, insider threats from employees with overly broad access, right? And supply chain attacks through connected medical devices. These aren't theoretical. We've seen healthcare organizations lose millions to ransomware because their backups weren't properly isolated. The solution isn't just better firewalls, right? Zero trust architecture. Every user, every device, every application needs to be verified before accessing any healthcare data. Right? We have an incredible array of tools for providing these kinds of features. We just need to have them implemented correctly. We built this kind of defense in depth, multiple layers of security. So if one layer fails, the other still protects patient data. I think it's about reducing the attack surface as much as possible. This includes encryption everywhere, segment your network, continuous vulnerability assessments, and of course, automated incident response. But again, security isn't just about the technology. It's about processes, right? We help implement automated compliance monitoring, and so security violations are detected. But again, if the company doesn't have the administrative processes implemented, then we kind of like are working for nothing.
So you're creating kind of around the fortress, you're creating multiple doors. So even if the first level it's broken, there are still extra security layers protecting the kingdom.
Correct. That's what we do. But if the call is coming from inside the house, there's so much that we can do.
I assume in healthcare organization, this is not the sort of environment where people bring their own device to work, right?
Well, we would love to have control over that. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can prevent, on our side of the fence, let's say.
For healthcare leaders who haven't started yet their cloud journey, what's your assessment of the current landscape? Are there risks to be waiting, and what should they prioritize first?
Honestly, I think they're running out of time. The organization that started transforming in the sense of cloud 2 or 3 years ago now have this like significant competitive advantage. They can implement AI solutions, they can scale rapidly, they can adapt to new regulations faster than organizations who are still running on legacy infrastructure. I think the risk of waiting is that the gap becomes unsurmountable, right? Healthcare is becoming a technology business, and organizations without modern infrastructure will struggle to compete, to attract talent, to meet, evolving patient expectations. I think we're seeing this play out in real time. Again, go back to the pandemic. Healthcare organizations who had the proper cloud infrastructure, they could, pivot to something else, in days. We're still seeing organizations who didn't have the proper infrastructure still trying to catch up, right? I think that's a preview of what's coming with AI and other emerging technologies. Also, I think there's a good news in all of this. Cloud adoption is much easier now than it was 5 years ago. I think AWS has an array of services which are mature enough from the point of view of healthcare, and the frameworks are well established, and the methodologies are proven for migration. In the sense of priorities, I think it all starts with security. Let's have a proper security and compliance foundation in place, and then move the patient facing applications to the cloud, and then start building data analytics capabilities. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick one critical system and do it right. The biggest mistake is thinking that you can wait until you have the perfect plan. There's no such thing, right? The healthcare regulations, the patient expectations, they are changing too fast for that approach. Start with a solid foundation, build incrementally, and then you won't have to wait for the perfect moment, which will never ever come.
Excellent. That's a great piece of advice. Let's move to some rapid fire questions to capture all your insights on healthcare cloud transformation. And so I expect short answers. I always say that, but all my special guests give me super long answers. So let's try
Let's see.
short.
Let's see.
Biggest mistake healthcare organizations make when planning cloud migrations?
I think treating HIPAA as a checklist instead of understanding it as a framework for building this patient trust.
One service every healthcare organization should consider, but they often overlook it.
Wow, that's a good one. Off the top of my head, I think the AWS RDS query editor is a big one. That lets you access your databases and run queries on them from when they are in a private area without the need to develop like bastion hosts or open up ports, right? Most healthcare organizations are still setting up VPN connections just to run these kind of queries. This creates unnecessary security risks.
That's above my technical understanding. I can understand dplay, I can understand the Bedrock, SageMaker, but what you just said now, that's outside my knowledge just yet. Most surprising lesson you've learned about global healthcare technology adoption?
In terms of I think that relates to cloud adoption. And I think that the healthcare organizations in the emerging markets, they adopt cloud solutions faster than established markets because they don't have legacy infrastructure holding them.
Best strategy for building stakeholder confidence in cloud security for healthcare applications.
Well, that's easy. Show them working examples. Nothing beats demonstrating a live compliant healthcare application processing real data.
One prediction about healthcare cloud technology that might sound bold today, but you believe it's going to be a reality in maximum 3 years' time.
I think I already briefly touched on this, and I mentioned AI-powered clinical decision support. I think that will be a requirement for reimbursing healthcare services. And I think that will make cloud infrastructure essential to survive financially.
What's your top advice for healthcare organizations selecting cloud partners?
Look for partners who are dealing with healthcare specific use cases that have proven compliance and not just, generic AWS expertise.
Or just reach out to Cosmin on LinkedIn, that's the easiest way.
Well, of course, that's a given.
Biggest competitive advantage you see AWS provides in the healthcare space compared to other cloud providers?
Well, I think it's actually the depth of their healthcare specific services, right? You have healthcare, you have comprehend medical, you have Textract for medical documents. I don't think there's another cloud provider that has this level of specialty or specialization in the domain of healthcare.
If a healthcare CEO asked you for one critical success factors for cloud transformation, what would you tell them?
Always start with security and compliance as a foundation. Always build innovation on top. And I don't think you can actually retrofit trust.
Yeah, that's a good one. Cosmin, this has been incredibly informative. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about safeINIT, and explore how you might help them with their healthcare cloud information initiatives here in the UK or in the US or in any English-speaking country?
Oh, this was awesome. And again, thank you for having me on, Adriana. The best place to find us is on our website, which is safeinit.com. We have case studies, we have resources, we have a dedicated page for the HIPAA guide. So feel free to visit, fill out the form, and get your free copy. We like to call that like a dictionary from whatever HIPAA compliance means in terms of regulation to the AWS services. It's quite useful for whoever wants to see what that means in the AWS ecosystem. You can also book a call directly on our website for any kind of consultation service you might need. And to reach out to me specifically, just do it on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat.
Excellent. Looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of healthcare technology and cloud computing?
I think we're finally getting to the point where technology can improve the patient outcomes instead of just making things more efficient, right? AI-powered diagnostic tools, real-time patient monitoring, personalized treatment recommendations. This stuff is moving from research labs to actual clinical practice. I think the cloud infrastructure we're building today is the foundation that's going to enable this type of precision medicine. Treatments will be tailored to individual patients based on their genetic medical history and real-time health data. I don't think that's science fiction anymore. It's happening now. Healthcare organizations with modern cloud infrastructure are going to be the ones leading the transformation. On a personal note, I think it's pretty rewarding to know that the infrastructure work we're doing today directly contributes to patient care tomorrow.
Excellent. That's truly It's truly impressive. Literally, you're helping with the technology on healthcare on AWS. You're helping lives to become better, and I think the healthcare topic is such a massive, important topic for all of us. Thank you so much, Cosmin, for sharing your expertise with us today. Thank you for joining me. Your insights into everything from healthcare cloud transformation, HIPAA compliance, global expansion strategies, provided valuable guidance for all the leaders navigating one of the most complex technology landscapes. Now, to our listeners, the key takeaway is clear. Healthcare cloud transformation is not just about technology, it's about building trust, ensuring compliance, and enabling innovation that ultimately improves the patient outcomes. Cosmin's work at safeINIT demonstrates that with the right expertise and partnership approach, healthcare organizations can successfully navigate the journey to the cloud while maintaining the highest standards of security and compliance. Don't forget to subscribe to AI Everywhere Leaders podcast for more conversations with experts like Cosmin, who are enabling digital transformation across critical industries. And if this episode provides you any valuable insights, please share it with your network, with your colleagues, and leave us a review. Until next time, remember that healthcare technology getting done right isn't just about best practices, it's about patient safety, data protection, and building the foundation for healthcare innovation.